RWAs in general, it's a pretty exciting space. A lot of our partners that we've been speaking with, they're very excited for next year because a lot of institutions are moving into the space. A lot of retail is catching onto our messaging of DeFi and RWAs, which we call RWA Fi. So I think the future is pretty bright. So my name is Teddy. I'm one of the co-founders and CVO of Plume. Before Plume, I used to work in traditional finance. Then I worked at Coinbase. I joined the crypto industry in 2021, basically, when I joined their corp dev and ventures team, worked at a DeFi protocol, and then spent some time at Binance, specifically for BNB chain. And it's kind of, where the idea, at least from my perspective, we have 3 co-founders. From my perspective, that's kind of where the idea of Plume started. So on a high level, what we're building is an EVM chain that's fully focused on real world assets. There's 3 things that we're really focused on. 1 is tooling, 2 is composability, and 3 is distribution. I think in the RWA space traditionally, the biggest issue is people in the RWA space, they just are more TradFi in nature. So they come into the RWA world, they're building TradFi products, but they don't realize that it's on crypto rails. So what we're building is really an ecosystem to help bring these assets on chain, help them distribute to the hands of the right investors, and create different trading and liquidity opportunities by using DeFi embedded into the chain as well.
So we're at the EEA day in Bangkok right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, what brings you here, given that there's like 900 other side events happening in Bangkok? Why particularly EEA day?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. So, I actually met Paul actually at Singapore. He moderated my panel for the RWA Summit. And, when we first met, we thought that there'd be a lot of ways for us to work together. Since he was running the EEA from, the EY side, and we're building an Ethereum chain that's fully focused on RWAs. So when Paul kind of got a glance of like what we were building, since we were building a dedicated chain for real world assets, he thought it would make sense to have us come out and join the EEA, but not only that, come and speak at a specific EEA panel. So today, we're out here really educating folks on why tokenization is important, how we can embed it with DeFi to create new different opportunities that we call RWA Fi, and really just meeting the different builders in the Ethereum space. So I was just coming off a panel. We spoke with the Arbitrum team, the Celo team, and the settlement team about just Ethereum blockchains, how we differ specifically, and why real world assets are important. So yeah, it's been a great day. Met a lot of cool folks, and happy to be here.
Could you elaborate on Plume Network's modular blockchain architecture and how it benefits the deployment and management of RWAs?
Yeah. So, our technology and our blockchain is very modular in nature, which really means, we are, at the end of the day, we're building a permissionless chain that's dedicated for real world assets. But at the same time, we also need a compliance architecture in place for the more enterprise and institutional folks that we're working with. And so what we're building is actually a modular tech stack where we can help provide any compliance needs that any of these enterprise folks need, whether it's KYC at the application level, AML at the node and chain level, zero knowledge technology. What we really specialize in is being mobile and nimble. So let's say we're working with a new asset issuer in a new jurisdiction and for a new asset that maybe some of our partners can't really cover. We can integrate with a partner in that area and leverage their license to bring that asset on compliantly. So by having a modular tech stack, we could bring more assets on chain, and also, on the more chain level, we're working with different DA layers like, Celestia. We've been speaking with, Eigen as well, to really find a way to mimic the real world on chain. And what that means is basically creating a chain where, gas fees are pretty much close to zero. And we can really create this experience that is very similar to the real world and bring on net new users from the Web 2 space onto Web 3.
So how does Plume Network integrate with existing DeFi applications to enhance liquidity and utility for tokenized RWAs?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So we actually have all the DeFi primitives that you would think of when you're looking at different chains. So we have different borrow lending protocols, we have different perp dexes, we have different AMMs, and the magic of what we're building is, we actually, since we're a permissionless chain, we have a bunch of RWA assets on one side and a bunch of DeFi projects on another. And by having everything on a single network, we can have them compose with one another to create different use cases that the on-chain audience is used to. And this is really important because today what we see is, the on-chain audience today is still more crypto than TradFi. So you need to give them use cases that they're used to. Basically, how do you borrow, lend? How do you trade your assets? How do you yield farm specific assets? So what we're creating, it's basically like use cases where RWAs are under the hood, but on top, it's more crypto minded. And I guess a good example is kind of like the stable coin, right? The stable coin is permissionless, it's liquid, it looks and feels and smells like crypto. And tons of people in the DeFi ecosystem use it today. Versus if you look at other RWA assets, sometimes the product market fit isn't necessarily there yet. So what we're trying to do is have all these DeFi primitives on our chain to make it familiar to the on-chain audience, but also create new use cases and provide different trading opportunities. So like, one of our borrow lending protocols, we're working with them pretty closely to create different looping strategies for our yield-bearing stablecoin specifically that we're working with and other enterprise folks as well, so that people can come onto Plume, mint a specific stablecoin. We're under the hood. It's very institutional, grade in nature, where we're working with like the Paxoses of the world, and then they can collateralize their asset, borrow more stables against it, rebuy the asset and just keep on looping. So that's just like one specific example, but we're creating all these different DeFi strategies to make it feel like a real on-chain economy.
In collaboration with EEA, how is Plume Network contributing to the development of industry standards for RWA tokenization?
Yeah. So we've been thinking about different token standards, and maybe we can kind of recreate and contribute to EEA in general. I would say the biggest focus for us right now is there are different tracks within EEA, and I don't think as of today there's been a track fully dedicated for real world assets. So our first push there is to really kind of create that educational track so we can start educating the folks within EEA and teach them more about how RWAs work, and then not only how RWAs work, but how they should trade in a normal ecosystem. So yeah, that's how we're kicking it off with EEA.
Awesome. I'd like to double down on RWAs a little bit more, actually. So how does Plume Network facilitate the tokenization of real-world assets, and what types of assets are you currently focusing on?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So our main flagship product is called Plume Arc. What it is basically a no-code tokenization engine to help bring any types of assets on-chain. And because it's no-code in nature, we grab a lot of our, builders and developers off-chain, very upstream. So I think a good analogy is, we're basically like the Stripe Atlas for tokenization. So a lot of these issuers, they understand the benefits of tokenization, but they don't really understand how to bring an asset on chain. And from some of our projects, it sometimes takes like 3, 6 to 9 months of research. And there's a lot of moving pieces, basically like which compliance partner do you use, which tokenization partner do you use on the other end, which transfer agent would you also utilize. So what we've done is basically weaved all of this together to create a funnel so that anyone can easily deploy any asset onto Plume. And once it's on the Plume, I think that's where the real magic happens. We basically, really help with the distribution piece, and I think that is the true unlock there.
What measures are in place to ensure compliance and security in the tokenization process of RWAs?
Yeah, so what we do is we integrate with a bunch of different KYC providers, AML providers, on and off ramps in different parts of the world. And in doing so, we can actually leverage their licenses. So if there's a specific asset issuer in a specific jurisdiction that, is needing like a specific license to bring their asset on chain, we can always, integrate with a partner in that region. They can leverage our stack to issue assets in a different region that they're not very local to, because our stack is fully compliant and it also has a lot of reach in that sense. So our go-to-market strategy was always to be very quick and compliant and like holistic. And we found that the best way was to create some stuff in-house, but to also integrate with different partners so that we can leverage their licenses whenever our ecosystem projects would need it.
Just looking ahead, what's coming up for Plume Network? What's the plans for next year, particularly concerning the expansion of RWA tokenization and other ecosystem developments?
That's a good question. So, I think just recently we finished our testnet. It was a 2-month testnet that, included a lot of our ecosystem projects on the RWA side. And it was a pretty successful testnet. We had around 280 million transactions, 18 million wallets, 4 million that were unique. And now for us, the next step is basically weaving everything together. So we have around a little bit over 180 projects building on us. We're tokenizing a few $1 billion worth of assets. We have, a bunch of capital committed on the capital side. And with mainnet around the corner for us, it's later this year, later at Q4. Right now, we're focusing on kind of weaving all the pieces together and coordinating this so that we can have a successful mainnet launch. And then from there, we'll be focusing a lot on the institutional push. We started this, a few months ago, but now that our brand has grown bigger, we're at the inflection point where, we can speak with the different enterprises and institutions of the world, hence why we're here today. And they have a lot of interest in tokenizing assets. But I think, there's one thing with tokenizing assets, and there's another piece of it where, we're taking these assets onto a permissionless chain and creating new trading opportunities and liquidity opportunities for, these enterprises. And so the way they view us is more of a distribution channel for them, since we have all the partnerships already lined up for them. So they don't need to do any of the hard work. So for us, I would say it's mainnet around the corner. We're finalizing some of our different product launches as well. And then doing a big institutional push over the next few quarters.
I'd also like to ask a question about the competition in this field. Mm-hmm. As you've participated and also sponsoring the RWA Summit, I'm sure you've come across other networks that are focused on RWAs. How would you say Plume is different from the other ones that are doing something similar like yours?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would say, at Plume, we're really focused on building real products. I would say, a lot of our venture backers, they're very US institutional. So it's like Galaxy Digital, Han Ventures, Reciprocal Ventures. We have some investors in Asia like Superscript and Hashkey. So what really separates us from the pack is, I would say, like our go-to-market traction in our technology. Our stack is fully focused on real-world assets. We're a permissionless nature with a modular opt-in compliance architecture where, if you need the benefits and the use cases of a permission chain, you can come to us and we still provide that. Yet on the other side, we still have a permissionless nature so that, enterprise and institutional folks can still get liquidity and different opportunities from the crypto ecosystem. They're not just closed off in a black box like how they were before. So by hosting everything on one network, we're able to create these different network effects. And I think once you couple that with the traction that we've had over the last year or so with our testnet metrics, with over 180 projects that we're working with, the $1 billion of assets that we're tokenizing, I think we've created, we've created a pretty strong moat around our product and our brand to really be the premier leading RWA chain to help anyone tokenize any asset, distribute it on chain, and create different opportunities and new opportunities within the DeFi ecosystem that I think the RWA space really hasn't seen before. So it's a pretty exciting time, and I think by positioning ourselves from a chain perspective first has created a lot of opportunities for us.
Awesome. Well, do you have any final words you'd like to share about being a member of EEA or EEA Day in general, or just the RWA field? Any final words?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, super excited to be part of the EA and officially, speaking at our first EA panel today. I think there's a lot we can do with the EA community, especially from the RWA side. I think there's a lot of knowledge and market research we've gathered over the last year that we're happy to share and give back to the community. And I think RWAs in general, it's a pretty exciting space. A lot of our partners that we've been speaking with, they're very excited for next year because a lot of institutions are moving into the space. A lot of retail is catching onto our messaging of DeFi and RWAs, which we call RWA. So I think the future is pretty bright. And for us, our main focus is launching our mainnet, and then from there we'll be continuing to grow the brand. So I'm very excited to be here today, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, it was great to chat with you. This was very interesting, and also looking forward to the mainnet from Plume Network.
Awesome. Thank you.